In today's video, we're back in Adobe XD for another web design tutorial. Today we're creating a crypto themed website with a nice glass morphism card on the right. So I think it's a pretty cool looking design. So let's go ahead and get started with today's Adobe XD tutorial. And quickly, before I forget to mention it, the completed project file is available to the channel members over in the community tab. So you can head over there and check that out if you're interested. So to go ahead and get started, I've opened up a 1920 by 1080 artboard here in Adobe XD. And I'm just going to go down to the grid and activate a 12 column grid. And of course, like always, I like to turn this down so I can see through it. And we'll just leave the rest at default. With this design, I'm actually going to make a quick logo. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to drag out a circle and hold shift to make sure that it is the same height and width. And we'll lock that aspect ratio. We'll set this one to 25. And then for the border, we'll bump that up to 2 points. And let's set that to white. And then we'll remove the fill. And I'm going to go ahead and turn the artboard to a black so we can see, because we're going to be working with a dark theme design. We zoom in, we have this little circle. Command C, Command V to create a duplicate. This time I'm going to hold Shift and Alt and scale it down. And we'll put another one that's 12 by 12 in the corner. And I'm just going to have them overlay a little bit. And then select that, Command G to group it. So I'll just put that here in the top left. So T on the keyboard. I'm just going to create a word mark, and we'll set this to 30 points. Font we'll be using is Proxmanova, one of my all-time favorites, at bold, and we'll fill that to white. And real quick, before we continue with the tutorial, just want to let you guys know about today's sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by UXPin. UXPin is a design tool with a unique technology, Merge. Merge allows you to bring fully interactive components from Storybook and design with them right away. If you've never heard of Storybook before, it's an open source component library that your devs can use to build out UI components. Simply copy and paste any Storybook URL and you can design with those same components that your developers created and will use in the final product. Merge Storybook integration removes inconsistencies that can happen during the design to development handoff. So try UXPin's Storybook integration with a link at the top of the description and design faster with Storybook components. Our main body size font, we'll go with 18 for the size. So it's a little bit bigger than a normal body size font, and we'll go with medium on the weight. And we'll put that on that right-hand column. And let's go ahead and align that to the right. And then I'm going to repeat grid on this. And we'll drag out 3 or 4 of those. And then we can ungroup the grid and Command G to group that. So we have those 4 filler texts there. Let's also create a stack with those, and we'll set the spacing to 50 or so. And I'll just fill in some text. And then now with that selected, I'm going to hold Option to create a complete duplicate. And then let's delete 2 of these. And we'll create a login and a register option. And then we'll put double the spacing in between these. So we have 50 in between. So we'll do 100. So the links are separated a little bit. And then we'll vertically center those with this icon. Then holding Option to view our spacing, we got 68 there. We'll put that at about 40 or 50 from the top of the artboard. We're going to do a typical 2-column layout where the info is on the left, and then we're going to have a bit of a visual on the right. So let's go ahead and create the heading. And for this, I'll set it to 88 points, and we'll leave it at bold. And then I'm going to align it on the second column, so giving it 1 column space. Paste in some text there, and T on the keyboard, and we'll drag out a paragraph. We'll set that to 18 and also paste it in some junk text there. And let's make that 4 columns wide. And for the 18, we'll multiply that by 1.5 for a good size line height, which is now 27. And let's put this at a regular weight. And then I'm going to set this to 60% opacity so we get a nice gray color on that black. And then I'm actually going to go up to our artboard and let's turn off the grid. And then something I like to do to grab this color is just drag out a random square and then hit I for the eyedropper tool. And then we can grab that gray color. And now we have a color code for it. So I'll just copy that. We can delete the rectangle. Now we can set that back to 100% opacity and fill that to that gray color. And the reason I did that is because now we're going to stylize some of this. I want some of this text to be a little bold. So we'll grab some of it and put it in bold. This is like the main points of the site. And I'm also going to fill that to white. And then let's put 40 points below our heading. So now we need a button. So let's just drag out a rectangle of any size. And I'm just going to grab a random piece of text. And for now, we'll fill this rectangle as a gray so we can see. And then I'm going to center those. For our link, let's bump that up to a semi-bold or maybe even a bold. I think bold looks pretty good. We'll leave it the same size. And now making sure those are centered. Command G to group it. And then we can adjust the padding. So on the top, let's go with something like 25, bottom 25. That looks good. And then on the sides, maybe 60. I'm going to decrease the padding on the top and the bottom a little bit. I'm going to try 18. And then we can edit our text. Make sure that's centered line so it doesn't mess up our alignment. Get started. And now our button auto expands to the size. I'm actually going to edit that one more time. That looks a little better. So I'm going with 22 on the top and the bottom and 60 on the left and the right. And we'll put that 60 points below the paragraph. So this is a pretty good wireframe for what we have so far. So let's go ahead and start on the visual on the right. So this is a crypto website and they're going to have a actual card that you can get. So we're going to create a credit card shape, like 630 and around 410 for the height. Looks pretty good. We'll add a little bit of border radius to that. Let's go with 25. And then we can remove the border for now. So I'm going to put this in a glass morphism style. So I'm going to go ahead and do that first. And then we'll add the elements to the card. So with that selected, we're going to go to the fill, and in the drop down, we'll choose linear gradient. And then we'll go and grab 2 white colors. And I'm going to drag this from left to right. The first one's going to be set to 19%, and the second one will set to 4% opacity. So the light source is hitting it from the left side. And since we don't have any support for the border able to have a gradient like we do in Figma, I'm going to go ahead and copy this and paste it on top of each other. So I have 2 of them now. And then I'm going to go to the border and I'm going to create my desired border, which is going to be 2 pixels. I'm going to make sure that's set to outside. And then with that, we can go up to object, path, and then we can outline stroke. And that makes that its own shape. So it's no longer a stroke. And so if we zoom in to select that, now we can go ahead and add a linear gradient to this. And we'll do the same thing. We're going to put it on the left and the right. So I'm just dragging this around. And on this one, I'm going to set them both to white and we'll drop it down to about 50 on the left-hand side and on the right down to all the way to 0. And then I'm actually going to adjust this to get it exactly the way I want it. Something like that. So I'm putting a little bit more of that gradient up on the top than on the bottom, kind of making the light source look like it's just slightly at an angle. And I'm also going to drag that down just a little bit on the actual rectangle itself as well to kind of match that. And what I like to do at this point is just grab a circle or anything and just kind of put it behind. So Command Shift left square bracket key will send that all the way to the back, or you can drag it in the layers panel there. And we'll just give it a random color. So I'm just going to drag out a blue color and I'm just going to kind of put it halfway behind this. And then I'm going to select that rectangle and then we can apply a background blur on this. So I'm going to go with 25 on the blur and 80 on the opacity for now. And then with that, we can add a drop shadow now. I'm going to drag that up to 50% for now and increase the blur to a value of 10, 5 on the Y, and then maybe 3 on the X. We can drag this circle out of our way for now. So let's start to add our text to this. So T on the keyboard. And the first thing I'm going to do is add the credit card number. So 4 groups of 4, you can do all numbers or you can do these little asterisks like I'm doing. And then on this, I'm set it to semi-bold and I'm going to bump it up to 20. So it's just slightly larger. And then we can play around with the character spacing. 300 looks okay for now. Then below that, I'm going to put a name. I'll just put mine. And we'll remove the character spacing by setting it back to 0. I'll bump that down to 14, so it's kind of small. All capital. And then we'll set that to a regular weight. And then I'm also going to hold Option or Alt and create a duplicate on that. And we'll set a date. So that's the expiration date. And then I want one more piece of text for this. This is going to be a number. I'll just put it in a random 4-digit number. And for this, we'll set it to 30 points. and semi-bold. And now let's start to align this. So for this piece of text, the name, I'm going to put it 50 from the left and 40 from the bottom. Then the card number is going to be 20 above that. And then vertically aligned with the name, this is going to be over here on the right, 50 from the edge of the card. Then for the top elements, they're going to be 50 from the top and 50 from the right. Now we can add the little security chip. So I'm just going to grab this card itself and copy and paste it with Command C, Command V, and just scale it down. And then I'm going to adjust the border radius on this. So now it's 62 by 40 for the exact dimensions. Then I'm going to paste a fill color in this. So we'll go to solid, and the fill color I'm going with is ED, ED, ED. And we'll set that to 100% opacity. And we can also uncheck the drop shadow and the background. So now we just have a normal rectangle. I'm just going to put this above our credit card number. And I'm not liking the alignment here, so I'm going to go ahead and play with it a little bit. So I'm going to go 36 from this rectangle to the card. And for the card, I'm going to bump up these two texts so that they're 14 below. And now they're 46 from the bottom. So that looks a little better. So on this security chip, we want to add a border. And for the border, I'm just going to go all the way down to the bottom left corner for a black color. Then I'm just going to start dragging it straight up till we find a nice darker color that still kind of pops on this background. 151515 will work for now. Then to create the little lines on the card, I'll just grab a rectangle. I'm going to position it in the top right. And so now that we have this rectangle, I'm just going to remove the border, and I'm going to hold Option or Alt and drag out a duplicate. So now we have three all touching each other. Make sure responsive resize is unchecked, and then we can just drag that down. And I'm going to drag out 2 columns of these. So I'll grab all of those holding Shift, and we'll make that the same exact dimensions of the previous rectangle. So I'm going to delete the center column and then this one in the top right. For this one right here in the bottom right, we need to set a border radius on this third value to 4 to match what we have here. And then on the top one, we got to do the same thing. So on the first field, 4. And then on this one, on the last field, we'll set 4. So now that has the same border radius and shape. And then I'm going to apply a border to this bottom one of 1 pixel, and we'll set it to the same color that we're using on the larger rectangle, which is 151515. I'll do that here. And so now we have this kind of double border. So I'm just going to drag this down just like that. And we'll do that over here as well. This middle one, I'm going to hold Alt or Option and just drag up so those borders overlap. And then I'm going to fill all of these to that gray color that we're using on the main chip. And I'm just going to group that together with Command G. And so now we have our security chip there on our card. Next, let's add the logo. So holding Option or Alt to drag a duplicate of that out. Command Shift right square bracket key to bring that to the top. We'll put that in the top left corner, 50 from the left side and 50 from the top. And we're actually going to make this a little larger, but before we do that, I'm going to right click and then I'm going to outline stroke. And then when we hold Shift, the stroke size is going to scale with it. And we'll drag that up to about 40 points in height. And with that, we have pretty much the card there done. The only thing I want to add is a little graph in the top right. So we'll grab the pen tool with P. And this is going to show the changes in this value. So I'm going to make sure that I have this smart guide here with the left-hand side of this text. So it's going to be the same width as this text. So I'm going to just click and we'll do maybe a few points. Just creating a nice graph look. And of course, we want it to go up at the end. Go something like that. Make sure it's the same size there. And then I'll just go in and edit this and make it look nice and smooth so we don't have any flat spots in our line. Looks pretty good. And then we'll cap that with a rounded cap. I'm going to place that right below that text. And I'm actually going to rotate it a little bit. My graph's a little too steep, and just kind of align it visually. All right, so that line's going to be the same color as our main button. So that's up to you what you want to give it a color as. For me, I'm just going to give it a nice blue color probably. That That color looks pretty cool. So that color is 3444FF. I'm just going to copy that color code and apply it to the stroke of that line. And then I'm going to click and drag to grab everything for the card and then Command G to group it together. Let's also delete that circle. We no longer need that. And then I don't want the background to be completely black. So before we finalize this primary color, let's go ahead and change that. So I've added a little blue to it. It's 0A0D13. And now this is looking a little flat. So we're going to edit the color on that. And I just changed it slightly. Now it's 0041E7. And then we'll add that same color to our stroke. That way it pops a little bit more with that blue in the background. Then I'm going to select all the content on the left side, and I'm going to make sure that is centered on our artboard. And then with that, I'm going to hold Shift and I'm going to hit the up arrow key, move that up 30 points. Then with the card selected, I'm going to make sure that is centered to the artboard as well. And I'm going to drag that down just a little bit. So that's aligning vertically with that paragraph there. I'm actually going to drag it a little bit further over. And so for the alignment on the card, I'm a little bit to the right of halfway through this last column. I think that looks visually a little bit better. And then for the background, we want to add a little bit more. So I'm going to grab this logo one more time. And this time with the logo, we're going to blow it up and put it in the background. It's kind of a nice abstract. So I'm going to hold Shift and just scale it up in size. And I'm actually going to flip it horizontally with this icon there. And I'm going to scale this so that we get 2 overlaps under the card. So we have one line there and another one, somewhere like that. And then we're going to lower the opacity down on this. And I'm also going to increase the border up to 4, just so it pops a little bit more. And I'm at about 6% opacity. So with that, let's go into the credit card. And I'm going to make sure I have that rectangle selected. And I'm going to play around with the opacity level and the blur amount. So my blur is now at 6 and 62% opacity. All right, so I just lowered the opacity on the stroke just a little bit. So it's now down to 66. And then for the background itself, I adjusted the linear gradient and just dragged this left swatch over just a little bit. So we have that. We could take a look at our finished design. So that's going to do it for today's video, creating this crypto website with this nice glass morphism styled card. Hope you guys enjoyed today's Adobe XD tutorial. For more Adobe XD and design related content, check out these videos here. And as always, have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.